So hello friends. So the subject, so the main subject is disaster management, and we are seeing under it the subject of emergency and supply chain management. And the topic is the triple A. Means three A's are there. So what are these three A? First A is agility, adaptability, and alignment. See, we always hear that the supply chain management should be very fast and it should give, send the products from one place to the second place in very less time. But these are not the best supply chain. The best supply chain are which are adaptable, agile, and aligned. Means there are examples when many companies, what they do, they hire engineers and build top-notch technology to improve their supply chain. One such program it is was of the efficient consumer program, and the US food service is the efficient food service response program. Food service response program. We have to understand that when the business arises, so executives focus on maximizing the speed, and when the business is down, then ultimately the speed is delayed. We have to, the researcher here observes that the very fast supply chain or the cost effective supply chain or the efficient supply chain are not the sustainable supply chain. Sustainable means after getting for a long time. It should be resilient supply chain. Now, three different qualities should be there. First is the agile, then is as see what was here agile, adaptability, and alignment. First, we will see some problems with the help of some example. Many things what happen that if there is an unexpected demand, very high demand, so this high speed can't handle it. High speed supply chain can't fulfill this demand, therefore it fails. There is a culture of fulfilling the whole container. and then supply. And this is a centralized unit. This is not good, because if there is a demand, high demand, very unexpected, so this central mm, unit don't deliver the products in stipulated time. And since it is very centralized, and if this get delayed, then the products which are very far off then get delayed by more time. And up till that period means when it will reach, suppose this is 2 days and it is taking 2 weeks, demand will go, there will be no demand. So when the product will reach here, it will be of no use and it has to be scrapped then. For example, uh, take another example of a phone. When it is launched, it is of great price. For example, 10,000 rupees. Gone are the days uh, when 10,000 was seen as very high end. Now normal phones are, according to this time, are of 10,000 rupees. Now when there is a very efficient and high supply chain, so what happens, the phone is distributed everywhere. So here also 10,000, here also 10,000, and there is no demand. Irrespective of the demand, they are supplying. What happens after a couple of days, this demand reduces, and that phone that you may have bought as the first buyer at 10,000 rupees may come to, let's say, 6,000. So because someone has got 6,000 rupees, you bought it at 10,000 rupees, so you will get angry towards the company. Okay, why they are decreasing the money. Another example, poor example of this is, there was one company who was not creating buffer stock. No buffer stock was there, and it believed in its innovation. So what happened? Suppose, for example, it is the product is launched in Akola, and there is demand from other towns like Shegao, Murtijapur. Whatever products were prepared, for example, 100 products were prepared and went to Akola and consumed. Now there is a demand in Shegao and Murtijapur. Since there are no products left, the demand is not fulfilled. which so there is a loss to the company. So whatever innovations you are doing, there is a need to keep a buffer stock. Also, there is another problem that this is your unit of your research R&D unit. This is your assembly line. These are your distributors. Okay. After distributors, you got to know that there are defects. And suppose you have supplied lot of things, lot of products. So these defects have to be rectified. But since you have not rectified it, this all product gets wasted. And you have to stop that. And you have to stop the assembly line itself. It takes a greater time to restart after rectifying the defects. So there should be a what we can say, a tandem between both the line and your demand. So therefore you have to invest in inventory. It may be costly, but it will benefit. Another example is of Lucent. It is an electronic company, and it worked pretty well in the West, but there was a demand in the East. Since there was no chain available here, they were getting problems, and the response time was very high. Therefore, a lot of time and money was wasted. So, what they did, they shifted their manufacturing from shifted to Asia. So, if you want to compete with your rivals, those supply chain efficient supply chain is necessary, but it is not enough. You have to be agile, adaptable, and alignment. Okay. Now coming to the first thing is your agility. Agility is basically means response. Response to what? The response to disasters or shocks or demand. Basically, not disasters or shock. We are seeing in the disaster context the response to demand to handle the external disruptions. To handle what? External disruptions. There is an example of Compaq, who used to make PCs. problem with Compaq is that it took very much time to respond. So its early adopters or the geeks, he lost he used to lost it. And electronic components, we know that its price falls after some time. So for example, if it is a PC of 50,000, as component decreases, the PC, the components used for making PCs, suppose 50,000, and the component decreases, so it has to be decreased. Let's say it has to be now in 35,000, the components. It's But Compaq cannot do that, because the company cannot on their own decrease the price. Vendors announce their concerns, but Compaq was not responding early, which created its problem. See this time, there must be some time, and you have to respond in a particular time period. That response was slow. Some of the great examples are Zara, H&M, and Mango. These all are three outlets under the same, that is Zara. Zara, I think it is different customers, and it cope ups with them, fulfill their demand. Its response time is very less. So what is the importance of being agile? It makes your supply chain more robust. And the example here is of the Canon and HP with respect to laser printers. Canon designed the inkjet printers, and HP produced this printers, the circuit boards. Both the R&D teams used to work together. But one problem happened, that they both failed to anticipate a problem. To keep the cost down, Canon agreed to alter the number of engines it produced, but only if HP communicated. Any Canon would do something only if HP communicated, and if it not communicated, it would do anything. So what happened? Whenever Canon modify its manufacturing schedule by few percentage points, there were fluctuations. HP was, what happened, this Canon is printing your inkjet printers, is designing, okay, designing its engines. They are supplying here, they are not responding to them. So they will create. HP was loaded with this unnecessary mountain of printers here. If they would have responded well in time, then HP could have do something. They could have stopped, because HP was depending on, because Compaq was depending on here HP. So that is the importance of agility. Though they were adaptable, but they lack agility. So there were a lot of this wastage of what we can say the laser inkjet printers. Global supply chains affect more when there is an emergency. It happened during the terrorist attacks in the New York, when there was a strike in California in 2002, when there was SARS epidemic in China, the hometown of COVID and other diseases. So when there are the wars or the terrorisms, the global supply chain does not respond to it and it gets disrupted. When there was an earthquake in Taiwan, several computer shipments were needed in the US, but it got delayed. The examples are the Apple Gateway. They couldn't deliver it in time. So it got delayed. But Dell was prepared. It could cope with the situation. As it has got data early of earthquake, and though there was no internet at that time, still the Dell could perform very well after the disaster. Next example is of Nokia and Ericsson. Ericsson mobiles were, I like Ericsson mobiles, but we know that the last decade where the Nokia ruled. So there was a fire in New Mexico to the plant where this both plants were there. The Nokia managers quickly distributed the designs to the third parties or the other manufacturers and set up its suppliers in Japan and US. So they could respond just in 5 days. While Ericsson didn't have any plan B, no plan B. So they took months to come back. So companies can build agility into the supply chains by adhering to the 6 rules. There are the 6 just basic rules. So coming to that, first one is provide data. To whom? To your partners, to your customers, so that they could do whatever they want to do or respond in quickly time. Then there should be collaborations, relationship between suppliers and the customers. If you share data, there will become a relationship. There was the Taiwan semiconductor manufacturing company. It used to give suppliers and customers the real time data of the tools and the data and the models, which help them to get a feedback. Third is this feedback can be used to design the products. You have to respond to designs, to feedbacks after setting relationship. Relation can be set up after getting the primary data or the provide the data. Now keep a small inventory of inexpensive non-bulky components. Inventory of non-bulky components. Zara does this. Zara. It keeps its hooks, buttons, and if there is a disruption, like if earthquake or tsunami is there, then it has some materials which can be used to work further. Fifth is build a dependable logistics system. Your logistics system you should have trust that they not trust that yes trust sorry and that they can respond in time, and similar in line with this your team should have backup plans. This will make you agile. So agile, first one is you share your data with everyone, you create relationships, then that you design the products with the data, then you should have a dependable logistics team, and you should have the backup plans, also keeping an inventory. So you should provide data, you should create a relationship, there should be design product based on the data, you should have a dependable logistics team, you should have a backup plan, and there should be a small inventory. Next is adaptability. So adapting to different situations, you have to change, and there is no choice. You have to change, otherwise things will go wrong. Means the example is of Lucent. It would not have changed its manufacturing units from the west to Asia, then there it would have problem. But Lucent story is bad afterwards, because adapting is Lucent stop adapting its supply chain. That it has to be realized that many other small manufacturers have come, and it was reluctant to outsource its manufacturing because it had invested in its own factories. So Lucent had no option but to stop down and outsource the supply chain. Adapting, one major thing is that the big players, they don't rely on only one supply network. They have other supply networks also. Yes. Supply chain markets also, they face the permanent, but the supply chain should not be permanent. It should be changing. Means the structural shifts. Because if they don't adapt, then the things will go wrong. Another example is of HP. HP used to develop the printers, and its site was Vancouver. Still, it showed the adaptability, and to get the economies of scale, it had opened a manufacturing unit at Singapore. If it would not have adapted or opened, then its supply chain would have been hampered. Another same example is of the Microsoft and the Xbox. Microsoft could quickly change its design, and while the Xbox could not. So Xbox supply chain, so what happened is Mexico and Hungary were close to the Xbox biggest target in markets in the United States and Europe. Microsoft was able to launch the product in record time and mounted a stiff challenge to market leader Sony's PlayStation. The Sony fought back by offering deep discounts. Deep discounts for medium term survival as cost would be. The resulting the cost allowed the Microsoft to match Sony's discounts and gave it a fighting chance. In 2003, the Xbox was wrested a 20% share of the video. Another example is of the Cisco, which also caters towards high demand and volume. Cisco is that who uses the three names. I think not Zara. Zara. It is see, it has different supply networks, and if one network does not work, then it can shift. Another example is of the Gap, who has a three-pronged strategy. gap. Old Davis manufacturing to ensure the cost efficiency in Central America, speed and push flexibility, and Banana Republic supply network in Italy to maintain quality, cost efficiency. So these are the three different customers, and the Gap is able to provide all three brands and these three chains are as backup in case of the emergency. The innovative market, especially in the electronics, is changing. So it is difficult to predict also that what will come. In olden days, there were the mm, DVD players, CD players. That before that there was the tape recorders. Then before and in between them there were the VCRs. Now we have mobiles, tablets, YouTube, the micro SD card. So the manufacturing is totally changed. Also, as the products are changed. So, if the electronics company who might be doing something here in the DVD players, they have to change and look for this micro SD cards, which are the current uh, which are currently in demand. SD cards are also gone in demand as there is the what we say the internal capacity has increased to 112 GBs and a lot more. Similar example was of the Toyota. Toyota used to make cars, and it has expertise in tracking the US trains and geographical preferences. Toyota decided to keep the inventory in the central stockyards. Dealers took orders from the consumers and communicated them via the internet. So to track the economic changes, especially in developing countries, because as nations open up their economies to global competition, the cost, skills, and risk of global supply chains operations change. Decipher the needs of your ultimate consumers. Otherwise, you will fall victim of the bullwhip. And the last one is the creating the right alignment. Now, what do you mean by alignment? In simple words, it's collaboration. Collaboration, and it further deals with that the interest of all is seen in your supply chain. All the dots are the different players or the stakeholders in the supply chain. All their interests are taken care of because everyone wants to maximize their profit and it can help each other to maximize each other's profit. And the example here is of Cisco. Cisco used its internet to communicate with others in the early time, so it could get the good information of its suppliers and customers. But here was a problem, and Cisco had to write off $2.25 billion of inventory in 2001. There were the interests of the Cisco's and the manufacturers were different. The contractors accumulated a large amount of the inventory for months, and they did not consider the demand of the Cisco's product. Even though the growth of the US economy slowed down, the contractors continued to produce and store inventory at the same place. There is another example of the R. Donnelly, where he asked his not partners, his supply chain people to give the suggestions that how to improve. So they gave suggestions and it helped him to improve. So this is the thing, and lastly there is an example of the 7-Eleven Japan's 3X, and how a company can supply its chain on agility, adaptability, and alignment. It has designed its to supply chain to cater to its demand. What it used to do, it used to use satellite connections with its supply chain with the distributors so data used to be sent back, and this data was analyzed. One thing was very good, that the clear message was there that you have to share the rewards. It is similar to the alignment concept, but if there is a penalty, if you fail to deliver on time, then there is a penalty. They had a problem of traffic, means using of the cellular trucks, so they rectified it by just transporting with the help of one truck. Whenever we hear that we have to make our supply chain more efficient, people go and think to get more technology, it can become efficient, but in the long run, you have to make it adaptable, agile, and alignment. So there is a table that how can you do for agility, whose work is to respond. To become more agile, you have to promote the flow of information, you have to give information, you have to develop the relation, you have to go for postponement. Means you design first, take all the inputs, and then go to the assembly line at the last moment. These inputs are also from the customers and the users who are going to use. Build inventory, have dependable logistics, and draw contingency plans. Adaptability. Adaptability, it means modifying your networks to product strategies and technologies. Adapt to modify as per the changes. And how could you do? You modify if you monitor the economies. Use the intermediaries. You have to evaluate the needs. If you evaluate the needs, you will modify. Your products should be flexible, they should have flexible product designs. These are the things are needed, that has to be adopted in the humanitarian supply chain. That is our larger agenda. And determine where companies' products stand in terms of cycles. And the last is alignment. Alignment means create incentive for better performance. You have to stake off to see the interests of all of us. How will you do? You have to create incentives. How do you do it? By exchanging the information, lay down roles, tasks, responsibilities, and equitably sharing risks, costs, and gains. Thank you very much. That's it.